Hopefully you've had a chance to review our video providing an overview of the different types of rooms in MapleStory worlds. If not, I highly recommend you check that out first. Today, we'll actually try to take our learnings and implement our own custom version of static portals. So we're going to work on an example, and we're going to walk through how to actually implement this. We're going to create a new project, go through the code that is required to implement a static room as well as an instance room. But let's take a look at the design here. So we have our start map that we're going to designate as a static room, and then we have two other static maps that we're going to move between. So we have our start map, so this is going to be the room that players will enter into when they first enter into this world. Then they're going to be able to freely move between map 2 and map 1 and the start map. We also have an instance room. We have map 1 and map 2. Both of these have been designated as an instance map. We haven't created any separate instances yet, but we will create instance rooms based on these maps and start moving players back and forth between there. So as I mentioned, we are going to have our starting map. We're going to have map 2 and map 1, and we're going to build a system such that they can move freely between these maps. So we're going to teleport the player from the start map to map 1 and map 2. Alright, so let's take a look at what we will be implementing today. We have our scenario set up here. On the left side, we have a kind of a goldish portal. On the right side, we have a more black and dark portal. So this left side portal will take us to our various static maps. So we have our starting static map, we have our static room 1 and static room 2 as we saw in our diagram. All of those have been set up as static maps, and we'll go into how to create those in just a moment. We also have two instance rooms, which is what this portal will take us to. So from the left side static map, we're taken into static room 1, as we can see. And this will take us back to the starting static map. And the portal on the right side will take us into static room 2. And we can move back all the way back to the starting map. So let's add another virtual player here. And now we can see we have two players in our world. On the left side, we will go into the portal. We can see I have dropped in. If we move to the portal on the other client, we can see that both players have been moved into this static map room 1. So this static room contains all of our static maps and is a single instance that is shared across all players. So if I added a third player, for instance, this third player is currently in the static starting map, but if I move this player, we can see that they all move back and forth between the same instance. Okay, so let's begin creating our world. We're going to start, of course, by creating a new project. We're going to click Create New. And we are going to utilize a simple blue template. So this is a template that I've been using in my other project, and we're going to click Create New using this template. This drops us into that map with the pretty river flowing on the bottom, as we saw in our sample. So now we're going to go up into our window and click Map List. And we only have our first starting map. We're going to rename this map Static Starting. And we're also going to create two more maps. So we're going to save the changes. We're going to name this world Instance Room Tutorial. Click OK. And we're going to rename this Static Room 1. We're going to create another one. Rename this Static Room 2. Let's create two more. We're going to name this one Instance Room 1. And create a new map and rename this one Instance Room 2. So we've made sure that our static starting map is the map that we are starting on by checking on this toggle button here. And once we've created all these maps, we're going to click Close. And let's enter into our first static room. We're going to save our changes, and we're going to go into preset, and let's select some background. Doesn't matter which background. Let's select this one. And then let's go into our tiles, and let's select a tile that kind of looks like it's appropriate. We will select our paint box, and we're going to drag across like this. And this will be our static room 1. Let's click on our static room 1 entity, and notice we have our map component. Inside of here, we have our instance map checkbox. So this is what determines whether this map is an instance map or if it's a static map. If this is an instance map, we would check this box, but because this is a static map, we will leave this unchecked. Let's move to our static room 2, save our changes. We'll do the same thing. Let's select a background. So let's try this one. And let's select a tile, and let's use maybe this. And we will select the paint box, drag across, and that looks good. We're gonna save our changes to this. We're gonna move into our first instance room. Same thing, pick a background. Let's say this one. And then, this is the same one as our starting. Let's choose this one. And select the tile. That seems roughly appropriate. Let's select this, choose our paint box, drag across, and this will be our first instance room. Now, because this is an instance room, we will check the instance map toggle box to make sure that this is actually marked as an instance map. We're gonna save our changes. And then finally, we're gonna move into our final instance room, and same thing again. Let's choose a background and a tile, and select this, choose our paint box, drag across, and that is our final instance map. Let's make sure that in our map settings, we have checked instance map. And then let's move back into our static starting map. Okay, so those are all of the maps that are set up. Next, let's set up our portals. So we're gonna hop back into our preset list, and let's select any portal here. We'll select this one and drop it right onto our left side. This will be our static portal. Let's maybe select this one and drop that to the right side, and this will be our instance portal. So let's create a model from both of these. Right from the beginning, we will right click on our first portal. Let's rename this and name this static portal. And let's right click and let's rename this instance underscore portal. And we're gonna right click and we're gonna click create model from entity. Same thing for our instance, we're gonna create model from entity. Let's organize these a little bit. So let's create a common folder. And let's create another folder and name this scene management. Under here, we're going to create a folder called models. And let's drop both of these straight into our models folder here. Okay, so let's select our static portal here, and we can see that we have our portal component and we have a portal entity reference where we can select our other instance portal, and we can just teleport between those two. From our instance portal, we can of course select our static portal and then move back and forth. So if I press play, we can just move back and forth between our two portals. Of course, that's not our intention today, so let's actually go into our static room and we're gonna click yes. And from our static room, let's drop our static portal right in here. And let's drop another static portal so that we can move to our third static map. I'm gonna save this. And then from our static room 2, because this is our final room, we are just going to drop one static portal in here and leave it just like that. Let's go back to our static starting map. And let's connect this static portal right into our static portal, the first one. And then from our static room, we will connect this one back to our first static portal in our starting room. Oh, let me double check to make sure. Right there. So that's the one we want. On the right one, we will connect the static portal in our static room 2. And then finally, from static room 2, we'll save our changes. Let's select this portal and let's connect this one right back into our static portal in the beginning. After saving those changes, let's go back to our static starting and let's press play. Okay, so we've actually already just set up our static movement here, and we can actually just use the default portal component to move between our static maps. So from here, we have moved into our static room 1, then we are moving into our static room 2. Oop, this one is a little bit weird in terms of the placement of the floor. But regardless, we have our portal here. If we enter in, we go back to our first map. Actually, sorry, this should go static room 2. This should not be that one. It should be static room 1, the right portal. Save our changes, test this one more time. And let's move into our third map, and this brings us back to this map, and we can kind of move back and forth. Okay, so we know that works. However, if we try now to connect this instance portal, so we know that this is a static room, and this is a portal to go into our instance room. So if we move into our first instance room, click yes, let's drop our static portal so that we can go back to our starting map from this portal. And then let's drop our instance portal so that we can move into the next instance map from this portal. Let's save that. And in our instance room 2, let's move into this room here. And let's drop in our instance portal right in there so that we can move back to our instance room 1. Saving this, let's move back to our starting map. And we can see here, let's connect this one to our first instance room. So we're going to connect this to the static portal because that's where we're going to enter from. And before we connect anything else, let's just press play. So if we try to enter in here, it does not work. Now, why is that? Well, the reason why is because our portal does not handle the movement and creation of a new instance room and the movement between those instance rooms. So we can't just directly teleport into that map. We have to first create an instance, designate which maps should be part of that room instance, and then move back and forth between that way. So we're going to have to create our own custom portal component for these instance maps. Let's actually just search for portal component, and we're going to do what's called a component extension. So this is our MapleStory World's base portal component. We're going to right click and we're going to click extend so that we can create our own version of this component. We're going to name this custom portal component, and let's drop this into our scene management folder. So this is the component that will be attached to our portals. But we're also going to have a global logic script that will handle all of the actual movement behavior between our instance maps and our static maps and such. So let's name this scene management. So now that we have that, let's go into our instance portal. Let's right click and let's remove this component. And we're going to attach our own custom portal component. Okay, it looks exactly the same as it is right now because we haven't made any changes to it yet. But we're going to slowly add changes to this component so that we can implement the behavior to move between our instance maps. Because we created our instance portal as a model and we've replaced the component from within the model itself, we can notice that inside of our rooms, it also has been replaced for our scene instances as well. So for our instance portal entity inside of static starting map, we can see that the custom portal component has been replaced. Same thing for our other instance room. If we move into here, we can also see that it also has been replaced for this component as well. So we'll move back to the starting map. Now, before we start making changes to this, we can totally just leave our static portal as is because the behavior is actually already built in. We don't have to do anything additional. But just so that we can contain all of the behavior in one single component as opposed to having two separate components to track, let's also replace this component. So we're going to move the default portal component and we're going to add our custom portal component just so that we have full control over all of the behavior inside of our portals. Again, doing this from the model has also automatically updated our instances of our entities inside of our scenes. Okay, with that, let's open up our custom portal component. And we can see that our in-engine editor has been opened up. But we can also just use VS Code for this, which is my preferred IDE. So to do this, we will have to enable local workspace, which we will do now. It's going to ask us to save our changes. We're going to click yes. And it's going to ask us to designate a space for our project. Let's create a new folder, and we'll name this Room World Instance Tutorial Test. And we're going to select this folder, and we're going to click yes. It's going to reload this world. And then finally, we're going to use extended scripts so that we can use mlua for our script files. And then we're going to go into our file, settings, maker, and we're going to make sure that our local workspace setting for VS Code integration has been checked. With all of that done, we can just double click on our script and we can see that it automatically opens a VS Code instance, which is really cool. Okay, so let's open up our scene management script. And in here, we're going to first implement our static movement between our various maps. So we're going to add our move to map function, and we're going to add two parameters. We're going to add a user ID string and a map name. And we're going to designate the path for our movement. So we're going to get the maps, and we're going to use the map name as our target map to move to. We're going to use entity service.getEntity by path to find the entity that we want. And then if that map exists, then we're going to get our user entity based on the user entity that's passed in. And we're going to teleport that user entity into our target map entity. So our scene management is our global script that will contain this move to map function. And inside of our portal component, we are now going to call that function. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a property called isInstanceRoom. And this is going to be a flag for whether our target map is an instance room or not. So if the map we're trying to move to is an instance room, we'll make sure that this is checked. We're also going to have a string property of room name, and this will house the name of the room that we're going to try to move to. Okay, so by default, we have a portal use event that is called anytime our portal is used. Now, because we've extended the portal component, this is already implemented. So we're actually going to implement this one more time, and we're going to check for if the portal entity reference, which is contained within this portal component. So we can see that our base portal component has a portal entity reference, and if that is set, it's going to teleport to that entity. So it's going to do exactly the same thing that it did here, where it teleported to that target entity. If that variable has already been set, then we are going to leave it alone and just let our base component do its thing. Otherwise, we're going to use our own custom logic. So if it's not set, we're going to use our room name and our isInstanceRoom booleans to travel between the various rooms depending on if it's an instance room or not. So we're going to first grab the local user's ID based on the player component user ID, and we're going to check the isInstance variable from the isInstanceRoom. So we're going to use this isInstanceRoom method so that we can check if the current room for this current client is an instance room. If it is, then this will be true, otherwise it'll be false. So I previously mentioned that you are able to move freely between the maps as long as it's within the same type of room. So if it's a static room, you can freely move between the maps that are within this static room. If it's an instance room, you can freely move between the maps of that instance room. With that in mind, if the current room is the same as the room that we are trying to move into, then we're going to assume that we can just freely move, and we're just going to use a teleport function to move to that room. So we're going to use scene management, move to map, to move that local user into our target room. So we're going to save this, move back into our maker. So because we've made changes in our local workspace, we're going to press Ctrl+R to refresh our scripts. And we can see now that our component has updated with the variables that we've set. So for our static portal, we're going to leave the isInstanceRoom unchecked. For the room name, we're going to move from here into our static _ room 1. And for the instance portal, we're going to check isInstanceRoom, and we're going to move from this map into the instance room 1 map. And from our static room 1, let's keep our isInstanceRoom unchecked, and then we'll move back to the static starting map. Save those changes. And on here, we're going to keep it unchecked. From here, we're going to move to static starting static room 2. Save that. From our static room 2, we're going to leave it unchecked, and we're going to move to our static room 1. Let's move back to our static starting, and let's press play. Now, as expected, of course, we haven't yet implemented our instances yet, so this portal is not going to work. But our static portal, if you're trying to use it, we can see that we can now move back and forth between our various maps as expected. Let's double check our static room 1. And it looks like I misspelled it. Static starting. Save this and test that one more time. We can move into our static starting and we can move back. Today we've learned that MapleStory Worlds provides a way to use portals right away without any additional coding. But we've also learned how to create our own custom portal logic all on our own. Now go try adding static portals to your own worlds. Happy creating!